All right, you've written a draft of your college essay, so now let's talk about revision. Um, Nothing good was done in one draft. I know that you're used to, with school, writing something once, handing it in, having a teacher grade it and hand it back to you. You print it off once and you're done with it, but that's not real life. If you're making something beautiful, if you're making something artistic, if you're making something important, you're going to go through a series of drafts. School teaches you sort of wrong, and if there's something we could change about school, I wish we could do more drafting of work. The problem is that teachers can't handle it. You got to think about it from my perspective. As a teacher, I have 150 students. I assign a 5-page paper. I'm grading 750 pages of grading. To send that back to you and have you do it again, now I'm up to 1,500 pages of grading. And if I do it a third time, you're in the over 2,000 pages range, and that's just not possible. When you think about that, when you think about a book that's hard for you guys to read, I assign you a 250-page book, and you're like, oh my God, can you imagine 750 pages, 1,500 pages? And that's just with one essay. So it's physically impossible for us as teachers to give you the kind of revision work that allows you to see its importance. But trust me, I'm a novelist. Revision takes more time than the actual writing of the novel. We spend more time working on improving it than we do on writing it in the first place. Your first draft of anything is like a chainsaw sculpture. You can tell what it's supposed to be, but what you want it to be is Michelangelo's David. And it takes time and it takes effort to get it right. But this college essay has to be right because it is the key that gets you into college. And if it's misshapen, if it's malformed, it's not going to turn the lock and you're going to run into problems. So let me run down this list really quickly of some things that I've developed for myself as a writer and have used in my creative writing classes and in my AP literature classes and places like that to get your writing in shape. This is something we can't afford to have mistakes on. So what do you do first? The first thing I suggest is something I do with my novel is you find beta readers. Beta readers are people you trust, whose opinions you value. And you get them to read it and to give you honest feedback. You ask them for honest feedback. You want criticism. If people aren't willing to criticize your work, they're not going to help you get better. I always tell people, if people don't tell you what's wrong with it, they don't love you. They don't care. So you need the feedback and you need to accept the feedback, because when somebody tells you something's wrong, they may not have the right answer. In fact, almost never do I listen to what somebody tells me to do to magically make it right. But when they tell you something's wrong, it's usually wrong. There's a problem there and you need to fix it. They're not you. They can't tell you what needs to be improved or how it needs to be improved. They can offer suggestions. You should listen to the suggestions politely, and you should try and make changes. So do beta readers. I would do beta readers more than once in this process, and I'm happy to be your beta reader. If you finish early and you give it to me, I'll be happy to look at it. Bring it to a Zoom meet. Bring it to office hours. I'll sit down and go over the whole thing with you. That's fine with me. So that's fine. So then after that, I would suggest reading it aloud. This is something you can do multiple times too. You can read it aloud to yourself. It's better if you can find somebody else and have them read it aloud to you, because when you read it aloud, you read what you think you wrote, not what you actually wrote. And so that's something that can go wrong pretty easily. But if you have somebody else read aloud to you, they're going to stumble. They're going to struggle here and there. And when they struggle, it's usually because it's badly written. It's confusing, or it's grammatically incorrect, or there's something wrong in this area where they're struggling. And you want to take a look at it and try and improve that. So pay attention to where they struggle, mark the page, and go and look at that and try and streamline it. The next thing you can do is run a Control F search. I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but if you hit Control and F on your computer, you can type in words. And so what you do with your Control F search is you search for a couple of different words. The biggest one is was. You search for was, and it will tell you every time you used was. But there's a series of passive verbs: was, is, has, had. All of these are you're using verbs that have no action in them. And if you want the story to be engaging, it's got to be an action story. So you're adding words, you're making it boring by using those words, and you want to cut them out. So, for example, why would you write I was running when you could write I ran? Or better yet, slap yourself in the face, because ran is a pretty weak verb, and it'd be much better to say I sprinted, or I pounded down the hallway, or whatever. There are ways to write things that are engaging versus boring, and you can cut those out with a simple search for passive verbs. So search for the passive verbs, get rid of them. The next thing you want to run a search for is ly, but you don't want to just put ly because it's going to get every ly ever. Put a space after it, and that will give you your adverbs. You can see I've got some adverbs in here, but you want to avoid adverbs where you can, because what they tell me as a reader is that you use the wrong verb. The English language is quite full of all kinds of verbs, all kinds of action words. And sometimes we use the wrong one, and then we want to modify it after the fact. So you're post-market modifying your verb when you use an adverb. So when you write something like, I ran quickly. Why? Why would you write that? The word is I sprinted. You don't need ran quickly. I mean, first off, we're picturing you run, and then you say quickly, so then we have to do this mental gymnastics where after we've read the word run, we have to modify how we're thinking about you running. And adverbs are just difficult. My editor makes me get rid of almost all of them in my novels, and I understand why. We just don't need them. So consider that maybe you use the wrong verb, and you can modify that verb and have a stronger sentence and get rid of lys. Next thing you want to do is check your tenses. Nothing throws a reader off like when the tenses shift. And if you're writing a narrative story that has a flashback in it, chances are you probably got a tense shift in there sometimes. And those can work. You can do tense shifts well. You just need to make sure that you know what's in the present and what's in the past, and then it's clear to the reader when the changes happen. But it also gives you an opportunity to screw up. And if you're constantly changing from a present tense to a past tense back to a present tense, it makes us want to pull our hair out if we have hair. So what I would suggest if you're struggling with this is just put the whole thing in the past tense. It's acceptable to write in the past tense. You just go into the past tense and stay there, and you'll be fine. So check your tenses. Check your pronouns. It's very confusing if we don't know what an it or a his or a hers or you or yours or my or like we have to know what it refers to. And you can't start with a pronoun before you have the noun. We need to know that each pronoun has what's called an antecedent. There's something back there that tells me what he or who he is or who she is or what they're all referring to. So you can run a search for that too. You can Control F again and go for his and look for those or her or whatever. But make sure that all of your pronouns have proper antecedents. That will help. Next, look at all your verbs. Take a second, look at each sentence and say, hey, what verb am I using in the sentence? It's tedious, but it will pay dividends in the end. The area where you can make the most gripping changes to your essay is in the verbs that you use. Can use stronger action words, more descriptive action words that capture our attention and interest. Get rid of words like ran or did or was, those are worthless verbs, and you can have so much better and stronger verbs out there. So take a second and look at all of those. Trust me, it'll make your essay a lot better. 7, look at your adjectives. We have a rich English language, and it's full of all kinds of descriptive words. And if you're using descriptive words like good, bad, nice, okay, awesome, amazing, don't. Those words are overused and boring, and they make your writing boring, quite frankly. So you want to use strong adjectives, words that do a good job of describing what it is that you're describing. Go and look for better words. And then finally, number 8, check your grammar and spelling. You can't afford a mistake on this. If you put a mistake in here, it's going to sort of sour the whole thing for your reader. So you have to take the time to be perfect. You have to check your final draft. You have to get somebody that is pretty good at grammar and writing to read it for you and make sure that it's flawless. Now, I'm going to help you with that. You're going to turn in a draft to me, and I'm going to grade it, and I'll give you all of the grammar things that I see wrong with it, and you can fix those. But they're going to hurt your grade. So the better project you can complete before you turn it into me, the better off you will be. And this is sort of a dry run for turning in the college essay to a college. So give it your best effort. That's really it. Those are the 8 steps of revision that I'm going over today. If you have questions on them, drop me a comment or bring them to the Zoom meeting and we will talk about them. I'm happy to discuss or add to anything that I've said here. But really, this cheat sheet will help you on every written assignment all year long if you hold on to it. Thanks.